And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for the last 30 years as the Money Lady throughout the United States. And as always, I want to thank all of you, my faithful viewers, for your support, for your comments, for your input, for the life of this show, which seems like it's been going on for many, many years. My commitment remains to bring on guests to provide you with information in the areas of finance, in the areas of health and wellness, and so that you can begin to make sound financial decisions for you and your family. Such critical times we're in today, and oftentimes people say, where do I go to get information and who can I trust? And you do know that you can trust me, that I'll always bring you people that I am comfortable with in terms of their integrity, their longevity, and their value set. That's very, very important in the times that we're in. So today is no exception. For the next hour, I will be having as my guest a gentleman who has a lengthy history in the area of investments and insurance, and he'll be talking about retirement income. As I said to him before we went on air, we've got all kinds of advisors running over with information on how to make your money grow, which is while you're going up the mountain. But at some point in your life, you're coming off that mountain, and now you have to go down the mountain where you have retired, you don't have income that's in the form of a salary, you may be living on 401k monies and pension monies and Social Security. So my next guest, NormFalick, is a specialist in this area, and he's going to be sharing with me for the next hour his thoughts, recommendations, and suggestions on what you need to do as you plan on retiring and now going down that mountain. So enjoy. And how are you today?
I'm great, thank you.
I'm glad that you are willing to take time out and come and share with me and my viewers about this subject. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have been what I call a serial entrepreneur. I've done a number of things over the years, all in the business area. I've been a real estate broker, mostly in the investment arena. I didn't sell houses.
Okay.
I owned a printing company for 17 years, and when I sold that, after 17 years, by the way, enough is enough.
You sound like me. Enough is enough.
After that, I became licensed in all things financial because I had been planning my own retirement for a good 15 years prior to that.
Okay.
At which point I decided that A, that's how my brain works,
Okay.
and B, it's now an opportunity to share what I've learned in my life experiences with other folks. And the last thing I did prior to becoming independent and doing what I'm doing now is I was a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch, Series 7.
Okay, that's a big boy.
When you think financial
Well,
advisor, stockbroker,
yep.
that's what I did. But that's where I learned of the big discrepancy between the financial services industry and actually retiring, which is what you were alluding to earlier.
Right, exactly. It's just amazing to me that so few people understand that a large part of your life is going to be spent living off of the assets that you've accumulated as you've gone up the mountain.
That's correct. And interesting, when we were younger and somebody was so wealthy that they didn't have to work, we used to call them independently wealthy. They're independently wealthy.
Yes,
they're so rich that they can live off of their own family money, right?
Right.
Well, guess what? When the average person retires, they have to be independently wealthy.
Yes.
And that money's got to last a long time.
It does. It does. It does. So what is your experience? I mean, coming out of a background where you were a business owner of a successful printing company, being able to go through the iterations of selling it, and now you are advising individuals on how to come down that mountain. What are some of the things that people need to do right now as they're going up the mountain?
There are three major things to consider, what I would call three of the biggest three risks that can derail a successful retirement. And of course, today's the first day of the rest of your life, so today's the best day to start thinking
Yes.
about this type of thing. I
Okay.
wish a lot of people had 10 or 20 years ago, but they don't. All they have is today going forward. The three big risks, Michelle, are taxes going up in the future, and I don't mean next year. I mean,
Oh, it's happening though, before us.
But most people today that are listening or considering their retirement are thinking 10, 20, 30 years out in the future, not necessarily next year. Could taxes be higher then than they are today? Which, for most people who have IRAs, 401ks, qualified money, the government is going to take an even bigger bite
Ouch.
out of their retirement than they are today. A lot of
Yes.
people don't consider that, and a lot of financial advisors aren't really concerned with that type of thing. The second risk is not if the market will go down. It's a matter of when.
When?
If the market goes down early in a retirement,
Ugh.
it could absolutely derail everything. Ask anybody who retired in 07 or 08 how that worked out for them.
Not
Many
so
of them
good.
had to go back to work.
Yep, yep.
And
Not
then
so good.
the third big risk to retirement is simply aging. We all get older. Some of us, as we get older, get frail to the point where we can no longer fend for ourselves, and we need help. And that's called a long-term care event.
Okay.
And that is probably the biggest bank breaker in retirement, is one or the other of a couple, a husband or a wife, experiencing a long-term care event, needing external help, be it in the home, in assisted living, skilled care, for an extended period of time.
And
That-
it's just they don't have the financial resources to underwrite that event on a long-term basis.
Well, the problem is they don't have enough financial resources for the last person
Whoa.
standing
Okay.
to still be able to go forward, because a lot of times that will eat up the entire nest egg.
Well, I tell you, I just was reading statistics on the issue of unpreparedness among seniors, and that aging point that you bring in is so critical, because they were talking about just on straight out medical expenses, over $350,000 that people had not budgeted, were not resourced, and yet it's a reality. Medicare does not pay for all of your medical expenses.
No, and Medicare is only health insurance.
Right.
Long-term care event is helping with bathing, dressing, eating, getting around that, or in the case of a dementia,
Oh my
if somebody
God.
could be perfectly healthy
Yep.
but needs 24/7 supervision, and that can go on for 10 or 15 years. The Medicare office has put out a couple of very interesting statistics. One is somebody diagnosed with Alzheimer's today can expect to spend about $1.25 million over their lifetime in long-term care.
Wow.
Just because they can't be left alone.
Unsupervised, correct.
It's not that they can't get dressed or get
Right,
around.
right.
It's just they can't. They get around too well, and they get out and
yeah,
forget where
yeah.
they live.
Right, right.
The other interesting statistic is, this is put out by the government's Medicaid office, that 7 out of 10 of all Americans, 7 out of 10 for you, 7 out of 10 for me, of all Americans will need some form of long-term care in their life. Now, when you combine those two statistics into a husband and wife, that makes it almost a virtual certainty
Right.
that one or the other is going to need some form of long-term care in their life.
Is it fair to say, because I am a proponent of long-term care, and I've had some other individuals on over the years to talk about the necessity, is it fair to say that most people that are in our age group, aging, and baby boomers or young boomers, know that this is a statistical possibility and even probability, but they still are not compelled to move forward because it's costing them perhaps more than they feel that they can afford. Is that fair?
I'll go back one step and say I doubt that they even recognize the statistical realities. For most people that I talk to, it doesn't occur to them. In other words, everybody is concerned in their day-to-day. You know, I got to get through today.
Yeah, I got to get through today.
I can't be concerned with what's going to happen 30 years from now. But the problem is you have to. You have to be concerned what's going to happen 30 years from now because you don't want it to surprise you. You want to be prepared for it. Of those who do recognize the need, a lot of times it's, well, if I'm going to bank on it not happening to me, or I'll worry about that some other time, or, and then again, it's too expensive. Well, let's face it, the care in today's today it's $100,000 a year to live in a nursing home. 30 years from now it'll be double that. 20 years from now it'll be double that.
Exactly.
$200,000 a year. The average stay in a nursing home is 2.5 years. Do the math. How many portfolios can withstand that? So yes, the reason the insurance is expensive up front is because the care is prohibitive.
But what are the alternatives?
Pay it.
Pay it
out of your pocket.
Write a check.
Just like not having insurance on your house and hoping it doesn't burn down. And if it does, well, I'll write a check.
But the probability of a house burning down versus a person needing long-term care, there's no comparison to the two, between the two.
No, they say, you know, the probability of being in an accident in your car is 1 in 4,000. The probability of a house burning down is 1 in 10,000, and the probability of needing long-term care for one individual is 7 in 10. So there you go.
So to summarize, there are 3 areas that people are potentially falling short. One of them has to deal with, if you want to just recount those again, the first one was?
Taxes going up.
Taxes, that's predictable. Now what about inflation?
Inflation is something that has to be considered when saying what are my assets going to do over a 20 or 30 year period of time.
The second point?
The second one was the market. In other words, protecting one from the market going down. We call that market sequence risk. You know, when I was at Merrill Lynch and any Series 7 financial advisor, when you get your Series 7 or Series 6, any of those financial designations, there's one word you have to lose from your vocabulary, and that word is guarantee. I guarantee nothing. However, when I was at Merrill, there was one thing I would guarantee.
What's that?
I could look a client in the eye and I say, at some point when you are retired, I guarantee the market will go down. When? I don't know.
Who knows?
Nobody knows. How long will it go down for? I don't know. How long will it stay down? I don't know. When will it come back? Nobody knows. I always said, if you could predict 1 minute into the future, you'd have all the money in the world.
Oh my goodness.
Warren Buffett doesn't know what's going to happen 1 second into the future.
And yet people are always resourcing and saying that what he says, and you know, it's really true. As we look at the financial services industry and representations and quote guarantees, I have oftentimes shared with people that there is no way a seasoned financial professional can ever guarantee you over the long term that your portfolio will not go down, and in the same way go up. But again, it's not a predicted type of outcome.
No, you know it's going to go down at some point.
You just hope it's not on your watch.
When people ask me, they come and say, so hey Norm, what's the market going to do? And I say, well, it's going to go up and it's going to go down. I have no idea when it's going to do either one. That's all anybody knows. But the market sequence part is, it's going to go down. But if it goes down in the first couple of years, in retirement, it could be very devastating. If it goes down in later years, it might be easier to withstand. Because your assets have been working and it's a little bit, so It's a matter of when. So the sooner somebody can get themselves in a position to protect against a market downturn, that's something to get back to your question, what can somebody do today?
Right.
Well, they can start looking at shifting out of taxable product. They can look at something that'll protect from the market, and not for everybody. I would say that people should start thinking about long-term care once they reach about 50.
I think 50 is a good age.
50 is a good age because at age 50, 52,
hopefully
it's
your health is
extremely
good,
inexpensive compared to being 60, 65. My oldest are 69 and 70, and they probably wish they started
I know that's true.
At age 50.
Does it make any sense if a person finds themselves in their early 80s in good health to even look at that as an option?
There are products for people in their 80s and even 90s.
90s?
I have one I can write all the way up to age 99.
99.
And now those are more geared for somebody who's already under care,
Okay.
but concerned about running out of money.
Oh,
They do the math. They say, I've got X in the bank. It's costing me so much money a year. I divide that into that, and they go, in 4 years, I'm out of money.
Oh, that's got to be frightening.
I can't imagine being 80, 90.
Oh my God.
Many facilities, now some facilities have Medicaid beds and say, well, if you've been here a while, if we have a bed open, you can stay. So they play what they call the Medicaid lottery.
Okay.
Other facilities, and one of my favorites is a beautiful facility here in the Dayton area, over in Centerville, where the lady from there was doing a talk, and her line was, when our clients run out of money, we help them find another place to live.
Oh.
I love the way she put that. But that's one of the issues, that when somebody is already there, there are products out there that can possibly say, look, we can take what you have left, it will make it last the rest of your life. So
that is
that
comforting.
goes all the way up into the 80s and 90s. I'm delivering a quote today for somebody 88 years old who is currently in assisted living.
Oh my goodness, and going to help her.
Yeah,
or him.
It's my friend's father, and he's visiting an attorney to see about hiding assets from Medicaid. Well, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
So the question is, why are you visiting the attorney? He says, because, well, we don't, when he goes on Medicaid, we want to save as much as we can. It's like, well, number one, you're not going to save anything. It's too late. They're going to look back 5 years from today. And I said, well, if you're concerned about running out of money, let's look at a product that will keep you from running out of money, making the whole Medicaid thing mute.
Mute, exactly.
Moot.
Moot. That is so good to know, and I know that viewers would be very, very interested in knowing a little bit more about that, and we'll revisit that in a moment. The third area, of course, was the
long-term care.
Yeah, the long-term care issue.
And again, and I understand, people 50 years old are thinking, I'm still saving for my retirement, I'm saving, I've got a kid in college, or I'm saving for the next one to go to college. I can't be thinking about, hence most of my clients, fortunately or unfortunately, are in their 60s.
Right. That's when it finally clicks, and they're
say,
like,
hey, you know what, now I got to concern myself with.
Right.
And to a point you made earlier, the earlier you look at it, the more chance you have of being underwritable.
Right.
There's nobody at age 50 that is guaranteed. Nobody's guaranteed you're going to wake up tomorrow, much less I'm guaranteed that I'm going to be able to get this when I'm 60. It could be something that's not even life-threatening. An insurance company could look at it and say, we don't want to,
we don't want to fool with it.
We don't want to talk to you.
And they do have the right.
It's not like you're going to die tomorrow. It's just that's not something
you're going to live
insure.
sick. Yeah, yeah.
And the scariest part, and this is something to consider really early, when it comes to dementia, that's the scariest thing for a life insurance or a company that does long-term care insurance, because it can last a long time. It gets into very big dollars. And the telltale signs there are memory loss, little forgetfulness. If they start seeing that, early on, they start digging deep into the underwriting process. And it's something as simple as, you know, I could be 59, 60 years old. And I'm perfectly healthy, and I'm out playing tennis every day, and golf, and I have these bouts of forgetfulness.
Oh.
That could do it.
That could do it on a number of levels, because with the reporting requirements for doctors now, if a person even goes in for a physical and makes note of some odd things, and the doctor pins it in on the chart,
if it's in the report,
if it's in the report, then there you go. A lot of people are not aware of that. The doctors document, and must document, all those things. And if you are a person that's going to speak those things to your doctor, well-meaning, well, I can trust my doctor. And I said, it doesn't have anything to do with you trusting your doctor. At the point you start telling them that you can't remember things and blah, blah, they're going to write it down. And the minute they write it down, it's a part of your history.
Any insurance
really
company can pick up on that.
They can. Yeah, that's
so the whole thing that a lot of people don't think about in terms of insurance when they say, well, I'll someday, or I'll get around to it. When it comes to life and health, those types of things, every day goes by. When it comes to life insurance, long-term, you're one step closer to dying.
Exactly.
Which raises the odds for the insurance company and the cost. And just the ability to clear underwriting is no guarantees. So if you can do it today, there's no assurance it's going to happen next year, next month.
But at least that's the purpose of that type of insurance. It's proper risk management.
Yes.
There are no guarantees on fire in cars and anything else, but my God, the first time you get in a car accident, the first thing you want to know, if you're not at fault, is do they have insurance? And if they don't, do I have good insurance? Because you don't predict these things are going to happen. But again, it's a part of running your home like a well-honed engine. You want to make sure those things are covered. Especially one that is almost a virtual certainty. I mean, seven out of 10, that's going to happen.
Let's face it. There's one thing, you may skate through life never having your house burn down or flood or a hurricane or the roof blow off, and you may never have an auto accident, but I can promise you one thing, besides the market's going to go down sometime, you and I will get old.
Keep living.
And that's part of,
keep living.
That's for most people, the long-term care issue is just part of getting old, and we all get old.
Now let me ask you this, because obviously for those who are of a certain income, the issue of long-term care is resolved if you're poor through Medicaid.
And unfortunately, many middle-class people who worked all their lives and would never dream about being on social assistance or welfare of any nature, which is why they get out of bed and work hard every day for 50 years, end up because of not planning on welfare. It's not just the poor.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason, for example, this attorney, the reason they exist is to help otherwise middle-class people who've been middle-class all their lives, all 85 years. And would never dream about welfare, you know, paid their bills, did everything right, paid their house down, all those things, and are now staring down, giving up everything they worked for all their lives so they can stay in a facility that they can't afford. And the government pays for it through Medicaid.
And it's really important.
Which is welfare.
Oh no, it's for the poor, because you will be poor to qualify.
When you're done, you will be
flat broke. And it's so dehumanizing when you look at so many of the people that are receiving this form of assistance, and the fact that they have put in so many, many years so that they could hopefully grow old with dignity. And I'm not prepared to go on record saying that Medicaid is not a good thing to go old with, but I will say to anyone, this is probably one of the largest budgetary items right now for the federal and state governments. In fact, in Ohio, it's killing Ohio.
Well,
Yeah.
when it comes to the federal budget, it's what I call one of the, and this even ties in with why taxes will, what I believe will be higher.
Too.
One of the big three white elephants in the room when it comes to balancing the federal budget, and that's a fantasy, but is Medicare, Medicaid.
Got it.
That's one of the three. That's about 20% of the federal budget. The other two are Social Security and the Pentagon. If you can't, and you know, as much as I hate to hear about building a bridge to nowhere, and when we perceive the government just wasting money on studying how tsetse flies reproduce and silly things like, that's nothing. It doesn't matter. If they can't control Social Security, defense spending, and Medicare, Medicaid, nothing else matters. Those are the three biggest.
Let's talk about Social Security, because that's an area that you've put a lot of time into as well. And for most people approaching that great day of, wow, I don't have to go to work for someone else.
Yeah.
Now I get to work.
I'm glad you said that.
For someone else. Now I get to work for myself.
Whatever that looks like.
Whatever that looks like.
Sure.
But let's talk about Social Security and where we're going in terms of that, and what your thoughts are and what you do.
Well, I like looking at Social Security for people who are now in their late 50s, early 60s, see the light at the tunnel, they're on the cusp, and they're starting to get their ducks in order, and have a pretty firm grasp on what Social Security is going to pay them.
Okay.
Obviously, the closer you get, because every year, if you're still working, every year they keep adding to your record and knocking off the lower years and adding the higher years, that kind of a thing. So it's always evolving. Or for some people who never work, they're adding to what they never did in their 20s and 30s.
Right.
Or maybe stay-at-home moms took off age 30 to 50 and they're back in the workforce. So
right.
That's always helping. But when people are starting to think seriously about it, I believe Social Security is a very fundamental, the number one building block for looking at what is your income that you can count on going to be in retirement.
But let's talk about why did this happen, because that was not the original construct for Social Security. And there were 4 legs. One of them was, of course, your pension. Everybody did pensions, General Motors and all the big box manufacturing moguls.
That was the norm.
That was the norm. You got a nice fat pension check, and it was a fat one. And then you had your savings. You're supposed to have savings. We weren't talking about 401ks. Your savings, and then you had your home. And then you had Social Security.
As a little bit of extra help.
As a little bit of extra, because I was reading years ago that when FDR put this in place, the age that you could begin withdrawing was the age that most people were dead.
Yes.
And they knew that.
The retirement age was 65 and the average lifespan was 63.
And so you weren't even gonna get it. So actuarially, it was a very sound program, because the number of people filing claims at that time is not to compare to where we are today. So what happened?
10 people working for every person filing a claim.
Yeah, so what happened?
The benefits got more and more generous.
Yes.
They created the age 62 where you can actually begin. They added spousal benefits where one spouse can draw off the other without ever. So it's not just if the one spouse is working and they get to look at that, they have to look at 50% more than they planned for the spouse that never worked. And that's not a bad thing for a spouse who never worked, but that's breaking the budget.
Right.
And then when you have more and more people now, and they didn't plan on, like I said, the lifespan was 63. Today it's what, 85?
Yeah, and growing.
They didn't expect people to live on it for 20 years. So while the more and more people are entering the retirement phase, there's a far smaller ratio. Now I believe it's down to maybe 3 to 1, 3 workers for every person in retirement. And here's the big problem facing Social Security. The baby boomers are just beginning to take Social Security. The biggest demographic in the history of the country.
Yes, 78 million.
Just you know, a lot of them.
Oh
there are baby boomers who are now, what are the oldest baby, in their late 60s?
Yeah.
But many of them are putting it off until they're 70, so they haven't even begun yet.
Right.
And the rest of them haven't even reached 62, 66,
Right.
67, that type of thing. As once all the baby boomers are fully, it's gonna, it'll explode.
I am so very, very uncomfortable about that path.
Well, Congress they're talking about it.
Okay, well they better be, because the bunch of them are baby boomers.
They give lip service to a lot of things.
Yeah, they do.
There's going to be some changes made. I can speculate. The most obvious would be raise the retirement age. You know, if people were not expected to live to age 65 back in the 1940s when they started it, and people are living to age 85 now.
Right.
If they simply raised the age to 70 for those who are, say, under 50, I think anybody over 50 would be grandfathered in the existing rules. But they say that might extend the solvency all the way out till another 40 years.
That works.
That's a simple.
That's simple.
Unfortunately, we have legislators who say people can't work until they're 70. You say, really?
Really? I'm getting there. I'm still out here.
I'm not taking Social Security.
I'm like, that's not my story. But again, we look at what's happened with that program, and then we look at what's happened with housing, because people were counting on their houses to appreciate and provide a potential source at sale. I mean, you lived in your home, and at some point you wanted to downsize.
And there's your nest egg.
And there's your nice, comfy nest egg, and then 2008 comes around, and kaboom! The real estate market
burst.
It burst, and all of a sudden,
the stock market bubble
and
burst.
And so people don't have the money they were counting on for their nest egg, for their home, and they're looking at the equities and bond market, and they're like, "What's happening here?" So what do you recommend?
Well, getting back to the Social Security, I say that is step one.
Okay.
Because like we discussed a minute ago, I like to say this is not your father's retirement.
Right.
You know, I would say, you know, my father, your father, their phones had cords and dials.
Yes, they did.
Our phones were hooked up to the internet, take videos. You know,
right.
Not your father's. You know, now we have smartphones. Well, I like to say we have smart retirement plans. Okay, well, one is this is not your father's retirement anymore. When I met my father-in-law in 1980, giving away a little bit, but he told me, he was a GE, another one of those big companies, and he was one of the last folks to have a pension. And he said to me in 1980, he says, I'm retiring in 8 years, 6 months, 3 weeks, 4 days.
Isn't it amazing?
2 hours and 20 minutes. And he not only knew exactly when he was going to retire, he knew exactly how much he was going to make for the rest of his life.
What a wonderful situation. Guaranteed income.
No worries.
No worries.
That is now available to less than 10% of Americans. So seeing that trend, the government, in its infinite wisdom, began the IRA program back in the late 60s and saying, folks, you need to be independently wealthy. You got to save your own money, but we'll give you an incentive if you put your money away today. We'll give you a tax break for saving it. In other words, you can save it pre-tax.
Okay.
And that was unheard of up to that point in time. And then, of course, based on the assumption that when you retire, you'll be making a lot less money, you'll be in a lot lower tax bracket, it'll be a benefit because you'll be paying it back at a lower tax rate.
Right.
Of course, the government always gets paid, so there are strings, one of which is you can't touch until you're 59 and a half.
Right.
We know that. The lesser known one And I've had some folks tell me, 30-year-olds say, well, I'm never going to touch my IRA.
Oh,
And I go,
yeah.
oh, really? You never heard of required minimum distributions? When you're 70 and a half, you start paying it back whether you like it or not because the government wants to get paid. Okay, well, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, that whole argument was great. It
Yeah.
was true. If I was 1981 and I said to somebody, take your tax break today because taxes are high.
Right.
30 years from now, you know, if you're 40 years old, 30 years from now, you'll be 70, you'll be retired, you'll be paying it back at a lower bracket.
That's what we were
I would have been
taught.
spot on.
Right.
However,
However,
here's the reality today that people need to think about. We are one increase off of 60-year historical lows when it comes to tax brackets. Now, all of us who pay taxes, when I say, are taxes high or low? You know, they're high. Well, for me, you know, if I'm in a 28% bracket, that's about 18% too high.
Right.
But fact is, the Bush tax cuts expired in 2014, and those were 60-year lows. Lowest tax rates have been in 60 years. It's our lifetime.
Yes.
You know, going back to the 1950s. Going forward, we're already at rock bottom.
Right.
Which direction are taxes likely to go? And let me remind you about the Pentagon, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Right.
With all these things looming. And the one that nobody talks about that I always like to bring up, when it comes to the federal budget and why taxes should go.
Right.
Yeah, they're talking about Social Security. They always talk about the Pentagon, that type of thing. They're not talking about the interest on the national debt.
Oh my gosh, you're taking away my speaking engagement conversation.
Sorry. It's my job.
I know. No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Interest.
The interest
And
on the
interest
national
on
debt.
interest.
The last statistics I have were from the 2014 budget.
Okay.
Okay. The government today, it's up to about 20 trillion. The government is borrowing about $1 trillion a year. It was about they spend about $3.5 trillion, borrow about $1 trillion of it.
Right.
In 2014, it was 18 trillion. Interest on the national debt was 1%. Interest rates are obviously extremely rock bottom.
That's the Fed's agenda right now.
Which way can interest rates go from here going forward?
It better be up. It just better
It's
be.
not going to go much lower than negative.
I mean, come on. You know.
There was a stretch where
yeah.
the interest rate was negative, where you actually had to pay the government,
yeah,
and
I was
foreign
like,
governments were doing that.
Right.
But with the interest rate being 1%,
okay,
that represented the interest in 2014 that we the people paid on the national debt was about 6% of the budget.
Okay.
Now, just to give you a historical perspective, back in 1985, during Ronald Reagan's administration, he inherited crazy high interest rates.
Yeah.
1981, the government issued its last 30-year Treasury bond at 15%.
Oh, wish I had bought a bunch of that.
That was a big day in 2011
Yes.
when the last one expired.
Oh my gosh, everybody was breathing.
Today they're 1, 2, you know, 3.
Yeah, right.
So the government was paying back then 12% interest.
On that
I
debt.
don't even want to think about it.
I don't want to even know.
I don't want to think about 12% on a $20 trillion. The debt back was about $5 trillion.
Yeah.
Today it's $20 trillion. And my question to everybody is, what happens to the budget and taxes? Because taxes are the government's source of revenue.
Yeah.
They don't produce anything. They just
Right.
take it from the people who do produce,
Right.
which is us. What happens to the budget when taxes go, I don't know, all the way up to 3? You thought I was going to say 5, 6, 7, 8, right?
Yeah,
I can't even fathom that. At 3, it becomes 18% of the budget. It's now right up there with Social Security. Now you have 4 white elephants in the room, and all the bridges to nowhere really become insignificant.
Yeah. So now you're into interest on interest. That's really
The beauty of compound interest.
the beauty of
It
compounding.
works in both
It
directions.
really does, but if it's
When
debt,
you're the lender, it's great.
Great, but if you're not the lender,
When you're the borrower, it gets a little more.
it gets murky.
So taxes probably are going up.
Oh, I would
in
have
the
to
future.
believe so. And fee for services, which is a form of taxation, all the different taxes that we pay today that are little minions, chip, 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 chip away for everything, dealing with automobile license plates, card, I mean, everything is a tax. There's a tax. And it's just like, how much more are we going to be able to do here?
So
Really
to get back
scary.
To your, I'll get back to your original question. I look at Social Security
Okay.
still for those people 50 and up.
Okay.
It's pretty secure. Now that said, little note, what we know about Social Security today is it has enough money, they've projected enough money to about 2030, that's about 14 years from now, to pay its bills. At 2030, it will have enough to pay 75% of its obligations.
Okay,
Under the current scenario.
Yeah.
So
okay.
they have 14 years to get it, to do something.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they're right. Now, mind you, the baby boomers are still pulling those benefits. They're coming out the market.
They projected the baby boomers moving
alrighty.
by 2030. All the baby boomers will now be soundly ensconced
yes,
in
somewhere.
Social, they've got that figured out. And again, raising the age to 70 is one. You know, what is the maximum today? 118,000 is all you pay.
Yeah.
On Social.
It's severely
They can raise that.
Yeah, they
to
can
make
do
it
that.
more realistic. There's a number of things they can do. So, I'm pretty confident that we'll have Social Security. I'm not confident my 23-year-old son can count on anything like what we have. But for those of us upwards of 50, Social Security is still building block number one to determining how much money can I have that will last me the rest of my life in retirement.
Okay.
Beyond that, we have to compare. Now, some people, I had a couple, I did a Social Security analysis a year ago and helped them, you know, the husband's going to draw off the wife's going to draw off. We did all those little strategies. And I go, is this enough? And he goes, yep, we're going to.
Wow, that was good for you.
They both had very good jobs. They're both at maximum. They're getting close
maxed
to
out.
$5,000 a month. Which is
great.
Rare.
I mean, that's great.
So you can live on this. And yep, I paid down the house. I've got everything. Well, good for you. So everything else is gravy. You know.
Well, let's see, on the subject of paying down the house, and we both are familiar with the HECM program that's available for seniors. How is that important in terms of retirement planning?
I've been saying for years that a reverse mortgage is probably one of the best financial planning tools there is. I've always believed, a lot of people, we've grown up, now again, this is the American mindset, pay off your house.
Right. It is.
That's been the mantra, it's been the mindset since probably World War II. The greatest thing in the world is my house is paid for. And all I can think of as a financial advisor is, you know, all that equity you have in your house is collecting dust.
Right.
The house is going to appreciate what it's going to appreciate, whether you owe money on it or not. It doesn't know if you have a mortgage on it. Right. So all that equity is an asset that you can be putting to work for you and with the HECM program, reverse mortgages, there's a couple of great ways to look at it. One way is, well, I can own my house, live in the house, and not pay a mortgage.
That's nice.
That's
nice.
That's immense pressure relief on your nest egg, not to have to make a mortgage payment as long as you live.
Right, and your spouse.
The other way to look at it is if you have an equity line of credit with
traditional bank.
If you do own your house,
this
now becomes a completely alternative asset that is not connected to the stock or bond market, that when the stock market does turn down,
you have that asset.
And it will.
It will.
I don't know when.
You don't know when, but it will.
When it does, instead of having to continue to draw down and already hurting, you can leave that sit and draw from your home. with that second or reverse mortgage in place.
Yes.
There's other avenues besides the stock market.
But I think that's important because people don't know that
in their home.
Yeah, they don't know, and there's a lot of misinformation, and thank God the American College is educating financial advisors as well as some key players at Harvard and other notable institutions where if 68% of Americans are retiring with a mortgage, who cares about tax benefits when you're dealing with cash flow?
Cash flow is all that matters.
Cash flow, and that's what you do. Cash flow is all that matters. And so if you're writing a check every month to a bank to pay off your mortgage, that's money that's gone.
When financial advisors sit down with a client that's ready to retire, the typical, where I was, and typical Series 7 types, they run what they call Monte Carlo simulations.
Yes.
And I say, well, don't call it Monte Carlo for nothing. And I associate Monte Carlo with gambling.
Yes.
And what a Monte Carlo simulation does is they take 1,000 scenarios, this computer program, and say, this is your age, this is the kind of assets you have, this is how much money you want to take out, and under all these different scenarios, how many of them will actually last until you're 30 years.
Okay.
And they'll say, well, if I can get my client up to about an 85 or 90%, out of 85, 90% of the scenarios, they're going to make it 30 years, that's pretty successful. And I'm going, what about the person who's the 1 in 10?
Yes.
That's a little scary. Now, Morningstar, the big ratings company, put out about a 16-page white paper on what they call the safe drawdown number. Every financial advisor said, when you're 65, we're going to switch you mostly into bonds.
Yeah.
Because they don't fluctuate. Again, that's an alternative from the stock market.
Right,
so
it
hopefully
is.
if the stock market goes down, the bonds aren't going to go down as much, if at all.
Let me get my little finger there. We hope.
Two things. Pardon? Two things on that.
Okay.
Do bonds go down? Of course.
Of course.
Okay. The other one is they don't go up much. They don't throw off much. And that eliminates what you alluded to earlier. What about inflation?
Exactly.
How do I keep up with inflation if I'm in bonds?
Right.
Protecting myself from the stock market. Well, the home equity is a great protection.
Right.
Is another alternative asset class that has no correlation with the stock market.
And the other thing, I'm not to interrupt, but most people are not aware that with that program, that money is tax-free, and it is considered it's not taxable income. If you write
your money.
It's your money.
Yeah.
And as opposed to a bank, where I tell folks, if you do a line of credit with a bank, 10 years, they're done. That debt has to be amortized out. Your nice little small interest rate checks, that's the end of the story. So you take out a line of credit with a major bank or a local bank and $50,000, and you're paying minimal sums of money to interest. 10 years, you got to start amortizing that debt. And at the worst time in your life again, here we go.
Exactly.
Can that work as a vehicle to pay for long-term care premiums? I would think it could.
Again, it is a source of funds.
It's a source of funds.
Because you can take it out if you have the line of credit set up, if you have 100% equity in your house.
Right.
You can borrow up to most of the value of the house as you need it.
Right.
It's not like going out and refinancing when they say, here's the money. You go, what am I going to do with $250,000?
Right,
you know,
right.
I don't need it.
Right.
But I'm paying interest on it.
But I'm paying interest on it from day one.
And
That's
again,
interesting.
of course, the nice thing about the reverse is you don't even have to pay the interest. It just keeps getting added on, and in our lifetime, we don't have to worry about it.
I know that paints a very nice picture. But continue. We talked about Social Security.
We were talking about the mantra of most financial advisors, and I was one, and I would have said the exact same thing as, well, to mitigate these risks that I alluded to, we're going to put you in bonds, mostly, you'll be 70% bonds, 30% equities, 80%, 20%, and you can take out 4%. That's the
Okay,
mantra.
okay.
First, has anybody ever done the math? It takes $1 million. I say to most people, do you know anybody that's actually saved $1 million? I mean, when they open up their Merrill Lynch account and it's got 2 commas and 7 numbers
Yeah.
on the left side of the decimal, do you know anybody like that? And most people say no, but because most people don't, maybe
Right.
5%.
Right.
So if you have $1 million, that means you can live on 40,000, according to them, financial advisor. Well, you can live on 40,000 taxable, if it's in an
Taxable,
IRA.
yeah.
So now you're talking 30, if taxes don't go up. So my question is, who has actually amassed $1 million that would be comfortable?
Today?
That would be comfortable on 40,000.
I don't know how.
It
I don't
doesn't
know
jive,
how. It
right?
does not.
Let's look at the other side of the equation. You know anybody that's happy on 40,000? Well, maybe.
Yeah.
You think they've amassed $1 million bucks?
Not
happening.
Not happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the one fallacy is on the 4%. Now, Morningstar has done, I read a 16-page white paper that they printed out, and I think it were the most reputable financial.
Oh, no, they are. Very, very
one of
highly
those
reputable.
independent, I don't have a dog in the fight kind of companies. They did a page that said, at age 65, a 4% drawdown using Monte Carlo syndromes
right.
gives somebody a 50-50 chance of not running out of money in 30 years. They say in today's
That's too tight.
low
That's tight.
interest
Right,
bond environment, that number should be somewhere under 3%.
Well, that's going to make.
You need a couple, 2-3 million just to
I need
lead
to
an
live
average
a
lifestyle.
couple of lifetimes.
Yeah.
But
so
listen,
to get back
Norm,
to the
we're
another
running out of
interesting
time.
point about the HECM,
Yeah.
when they find that when folks have the equity in their house to draw on,
Yeah.
it takes that 50-50 proposition up into the 90s.
That's awesome. Listen, give a phone number. We've run out of time.
513-604-6657.
Say it again.
513, because I'm in Cincinnati, but I take calls from anywhere. 513-604-6657.
Wow. This has been a great show. I'm honored to have one of the nation's top specialists on retirement income planning, which is after you've gotten to the top of the mountain, now what are you going to do? And for many, many people approaching retirement, it can be scary, it can be uncertain, and you need good, sound financial guidance. And again, I endorse Norm as an expert in this industry. And please comfortably give him a call. Tell your friends that didn't see this show that they are welcome to watch it on YouTube and other venues. In Cincinnati, we air on Time Warner, as well as Dayton, DATV, and other markets. But keep this in mind. Retirement can be a blessing if you're prepared, or it can be a curse if you won't and if you haven't. So on today's segment of The Power of Money, I'm your host, Michelle Graves, as always, wishing you an amazing day, and take care of your kids, grandkids, love your wives, husbands, and I close out, as always, with God bless you, and I'll see you next time. You take care.